Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Red Rising, chapters 25 through 29. Tribal War, Mustang, The House of Rage, My Brother, and Unity. In these chapters, it turns out that my instinct that maybe Titus was not a gold actually is true. I didn't expect there to be more than one undercover in the bunch. Are there more? How frequent a thing is this? What's up with it? Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashley for commissioning this episode. Ashley, if you're out there, thank you. I want to preface this one by mentioning that I am going by the original breakdown of the chapters for today, simply because I had already read these by the time that I saw the message about the new breakdown. So I decided to just stick with it since I had already gotten here. But Alex has given me a new breakdown in the Discord, I think. So I'm going to be trying to update the titles of the crowdcast events so that they are accurate, and the page on Google Docs as well, because we have like a spreadsheet there. So apologies if anybody is sort of caught off guard by what I'm covering, but just letting you all know that the breakdown has been shortened so that each section I do isn't quite as long, and that way I'm able to get through it a little bit better because I have been really falling behind. So this chapter 25, Tribal War, is our sneaking into the enemy camp, right? And when Cassius is talking to this whole thing, you guys, it's so frustrating here because they had gotten out, right? And I'm trying to find the spot here. So Cassius and I slink along the slanted dirt road that leads to the gatehouse. We can hardly even see it. The fog is so thick. More sounds from inside. It seems like the slaves are up. I hear coughs, grumbling, and a few shouts. A long creak and the clatter of chains means the gate is opening. And this whole situation here with them having to, like, I just really want to take a moment and step back and look at the monstrous quality of what these kids are being made to do. And there is a speech later on from the girl in, I can't remember the name of the other house they're going up against, because I think they're using Roman names for the gods, which I am less familiar with than the Greek names a lot of the time. But she is basically the one that's going like, do you think this is what they want? This is a school. And he's just like, it's not, though. Like, the point of this is that they're not trying to do regular school. And so every time I'm in this bit that I sort of take a moment and step back and look at the reality of none of this is for, quote, survival, even though it technically is. They could be killed. And we have seen that certain people have been allowed to die, and that is just considered part of the package. It's not the goal, but it is not an issue. It feels constantly like it is about survival. They make it feel so desperate and so real. So they're sneaking into Titus's area of their own castle. And the whole thing, Cassius sees what it is that Titus is doing to the girls. The sounds that they hear, then came the scream muffled by distance and the twists of our own cavern township. I still see how the broth quivered in the ladle, how my mother's hand shook when she heard it. Screams, not of pain, but of horror. And this is a memory that he has. What he's doing to the girls, Cassius hisses. He's a beast. This is war, I say, though the words sound hollow even in my own ears. It's school, he reminds me. What if Titus did this to our girls, to Leah, to Quinn? We would kill him. We would kill him, cut his prick off, and shove it in his mouth. And I know he's also thinking of what Titus must have done to Julian. Well, suffice to say, Cassius lets this get away from him a little bit. So, Cassius, he can't let this go. And I think it really is that he's more angry about his brother, and he's using the women as like, not to say that he's not outraged by it, because it feels like most of the Gold seem to agree this is an off-limits thing to do. Like, this shouldn't have been allowed. But I think it's really much more of a convenient excuse for his rage about his brother that he get up in arms about these women being raped, which is so frequently the way women are used. Like, it's just a really pervasive tactic. Women's safety is not prioritized until there's another issue at hand, and their safety can be touted as what is being protected, when that's not the actual, like, there are so many instances of this, like historically with white women accusing black men of having raped them so that there is an excuse to lynch. Then there's, like, present day with, we don't need men dressing like women to come into our bathrooms, when it's like male rapists, cis rapists come into bathrooms to rape anyway. Like, that is not a documented thing that has even happened, So anyway, it's just sort of, I wanted to like Cassius better for his outrage over this, but I just didn't really buy it. And Fitchner says, prove you're a man and stop him. As long as he's not murdering them one by one, it's not our concern. All wounds heal, even these. That's a lie, I tell him. Some things do not fade. Some things can never be made right. And I really like the way that is said. Some things can never be made right. Because even if you want to argue with some things don't heal, some people will say I have healed after being assaulted. Some things can never be made right. That is the thing. You can heal from something, but it being right again, sometimes the thing is broken and it's just broken. And I don't mean like a person being broken. I mean like a sense of safety, of sanctity being broken, a sense of self, that now you are aware of this thing that can be done in a way that you weren't before experiencing it. So the plan starts with a concession only someone once a husband could make. Cassius cannot stop laughing when I tell him the details. Even Quinn snorts a laugh the next morning. So they leave some guards and they head out. And when we return to our fort by early morning, I'm sure I've been more tired, but I can't remember when. Leah meets me by the fort's gate. What happened? Leah, where is Cassius? She tells me. Titus captured Quinn as she was on her way back from the tower. They beat her. Then Titus sent one of her ears here. It was meant for me. They thought Quinn was my girl. And Titus thinks he knows my temper. They got the reaction they wanted, just not from me. Cassius was on watch, and as the others slept, he snuck away to the castle to challenge Titus. Somehow, the brilliant young man was arrogant enough to think hundreds of years of aureate honor and tradition would survive the sickness that has consumed Titus's tribe in only a few weeks. The Imperator's son was wrong, and he is also unused to having his heritage be of such little consequence. In the real world, he would have been safe. In this small one, he is not. And Cassius stumbles out of the trees. And he is fucked up. Lips split, eyes swollen, ribs all covered in bruises. 3 dislocated fingers shoot out like tree roots, and his shoulder is odd. The others stare at him with such sadness. The pallid cast to the others' faces tell me they have never before seen someone beautiful mutilated. I have. He smells like piss. He tries to play it off as some lark. They beat the slag out of me when I challenged him, hit me with a shovel on the side of the head, then stood around me and had themselves a circle piss. Then they tied me up in that stinkhole keep, but Pollux set me free like a good lad, and he's agreed to open the gate if we need it done. I didn't think you were so stupid, I say. Of course he is. He wants to be one of the sovereign's knights, and all they do is duel. You should have waited for us. What's done is done, I say. We go ahead with the plan. Fine, Cassius snorts, but when the time comes, Titus is mine. Now, this comes up later, but I really want to say, somebody should have challenged him right there. When the time comes, Titus is mine. No, sir. After all of this, he is not yours. You got your chance for him to be yours, and you fucked it up. You fumbled the bag, and the bag is now someone else's. That should have been a wrap on that. But Darrow has a kind of kinship with Cassius, calls him his friend, and he can't shake it. And it seems like he's maybe shot himself in the foot by the end of this little section here. And when we start chapter 26, part of Cassius is gone. The humiliation changed him. I can't decide how, though. And he admits, I failed the test. I went in there like an idiot, and they would have killed me if this were like another situation. And Cassius and I go east according to my plan. We pass through a humid glen. How far east of the castle you reckon we are? Maybe 20 clicks? Hard to peg it. I want our horse to ride back, Cassius tells me. He can't see out of his left eye, but his bravado is back. A little too forcefully. And he yells out, "Hey, darling, prime ride. What house are you?" And he tries to steal her horse, which he is just so clumsy and obvious with this. It's not even like he's acting like I'm going to be real sneaky, and it's like, come on. And I love this so much. You're stunningly beautiful. This is Cassius. You must be from Venus. Hit me with whatever's under that cloth on your saddle and take me back to your fortress. I'll be your pink if you promise not to share me and keep me warm every night and every morning. Well, aren't you the charmer, handsome? And by that pitchfork in your hand, you must be a prime fighter, too. She bats her eyelashes. Cassius puffs out his chest in agreement. She waits for him to understand. I love that line. It's not like, it's the author is not telling us the joke. He's just going, I'm just going to let that sit there for a second until it sinks in. You don't have crops. You just fought those who do. You don't have weapons, or you would be carrying them. So Sarah's is in these parts as well, likely in the lowlands or near that big river everyone is talking about. So are you in the woods? North in the highlands? Oh, this is fun. How bad are your weapons? You clearly don't have horses. And later on, it's put forward by Darrow that they were not given any supplies because this is a test of basically their tempers. Like, can Mars win when given no advantages and left to their own devices? Are they going to simply go bananas with the violence and burn out? And I think it's a really interesting thing that they were the only ones that got essentially nothing. So let's see. What draft number were you? I asked, wishing I'd paid more attention. Higher than you, Reaper. I remember Mercury wanted you something awful, but his drafters wouldn't let him pick you in the first round. Something about your rage metric, which I love that idea. I noticed the knife under her black tunic, but I still can't remember her from the draft. Our job is done. We can leave, Mustang. She's smart enough to figure out the rest. But leaving might be a problem without a horse. I feign boredom. Cassius keeps an eye on the hill around. Then I start suddenly as if I've noticed something. I whisper snake into his ear while looking at the horse's front hooves. He looks too, and at this point, the girl's movement is involuntary. Even as she realizes it's a trick, she leans forward. For those of you listening to this afterward, I had been talking for another 5 minutes and then looked down and realized that GarageBand was giving me an error for some reason. So it cut me off, but I was just in the middle of saying how we have all been in a situation where we have an involuntary reaction to something and our brain catches up a split second too late as we're moving to do the thing that we already have figured out is a mistake, but we can't stop ourselves. And it is a really terrible feeling. And then I jumped over to the point when they are floating in the lock and they are trying not to go into hypothermia while all of the people from Minerva gather around. And he's really certain at this point, I'm going to be a slave. They're going to enslave me again. And I'm going to have to go through this whole thing. And then he sees something, or he hears something across the water. There's this scream. A knife got him. Someone runs to his aid and electricity flares blue again. I see a black wolf standing over one body as another falls. Come out of the water, fishies. We paddle to the shore and pant in the mud. Mild hypothermia has set in. It won't kill us, but my fingers are still slow as mud squishes between them. My body shakes like a drill boy at work. The worst feeling. I hate that kind of cold. Ooh, Ms. T says that's weird because my crowdcast froze then too. There must have been some kind of problem with my computer because it wouldn't be the internet connection or GarageBand wouldn't have had a problem. Interesting. That's worrisome. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little here, but what they do is they manage to take the Minervan standard and they find some horses and they sneak their way into the Minervan camp. He actually manages, here it is, let's see, password. Bosom Butthead, I shout up. Severo heard it the last time he was here. Bosom Butthead? I'm sorry. What? Why? What does that mean? This has to be some sort of there's got to be a reason, right? I really want to know. And he's like, where's Virginia and the Raiders? Took their standard, man. The Pissers didn't even have horses. We might still manage to take the castle. The sentry bites. Prime news. Virginia's a devil. June's made supper. Fetch some in the kitchen and then join me if you like. I'm bored and need to be entertained. And they come in and there is just a whole sense of this castle being much nicer, in better order. Everything about this. They have gardens and olive trees that wend between sandstone columns. It's drier, cleaner, less oppressive. Two girls pass us with cups of milk. They have no torches or fires an enemy can spot from the distance, only small candles. It makes it easy to slink about. And eventually, they wind up in this room that I could not stop laughing. They have score sheets to track accomplishments. I love this organization. Like, this is obviously akin to Ravenclaw. And the fact that they have gone into basically, each of us has a binder, like, of course. And Pax has taken 8 slaves personally and caused Medbots to come down to fetch 9 students. So I assume he's the one that stood as tall as an obsidian. And he goes around and breaks everything. When I've ruined their map and am finished defacing a statue of Minerva, I use the axe I found to chop the name of Mars into their long, beautiful war table. I'm tempted to etch another house's name into the debris to confuse them, but I want them to know who did this. This house is too put together, too ordered and level-headed. They have a leader, raiders, sentries, although naive ones, cooks, olive trees, warm milk, stun pikes, horses, honey, strategy. Let them feel a little bit more like House Mars. Let them feel rage, chaos. And I love this. A girl walks in, and the first thing he asks as he raises his axe is, "Can you cook?" I don't know why that's the first thing. Like, I know why, but you know what I'm saying? Like, really? And she laughs, which I can't, of course. I mean, of course you would. That is such a bizarre, oh my God. So what he does is he runs through yelling. They're in the towers, the top levels, everywhere, dozens. Mars is here. Smoke spreads, so do their cries. "Mars," they shout. "Mars has come." A young man flashes past me. I grab his collar and throw him out a window into the courtyard below. I go to the kitchen. Cassia's fire is not bad, mostly grease and brush. A howling girl beats at it. "June," I call out. She turns into my stun pike and shudders as the electricity dumbs down her muscles. That's how I steal their cook. Cassius finds me running with June over my shoulder. "What the hell?" "She's a cook," I explain. He laughs so hard he can barely breathe. I love it so much, you guys. It is such a basic thing. I mean, you know, I know that this is like a fucked up comparison to make, but it just makes me think of like dudes in a frat house who they were raised by moms who did everything for them, and then they go to college and they get their first taste of what it's like to live the way they thought they could accept, but they can't do it because it's too fucking awful. They thought it would be great to have nobody harassing them to clean their room or telling them to do laundry or take a shower or whatever. And they were like, "Oh, this is the life. I'm going to live in this frat house with dudes and we're just going to play video games and jerk off and drink beer and we won't have to worry about any of that." And then they actually realize that's a hideous way to live. And it sounds fun, but somebody has to be doing stuff. And so the first girl that they meet that can give a blowjob and make a sandwich, they're just like, "Oh my God, she's amazing." And it's like, no, dude, you are just a savage who doesn't know how to take care of himself. And this poor girl has no idea how useless you are going to be in her life. Like, oh my God, what a tragic, I hate this so much. I love it, but I hate it. So Severo joins us 2 minutes later. The enemy chases him out with stun pikes. They're the ones without horses, and they've got no chance to get back the owl standard that glitters in his muddy hands. So they head out. Chapter 27. We find Roke at Phobos Tower. So at this point, everybody has like agreed that Darrow is the one that's the de facto leader. And they come back to the castle and they make sure that he is the one that falls forward, carrying the standard in victory. And when they get there, their castle is taken. And it turns out Virginia, he keeps calling her Mustang, has taken the tower, and she has found out what it is that Titus has been doing to the girls. And she is so disgusted and horrified, and basically is coming at Darrow as if he sanctioned this and is okay with it. And even when he says, I had nothing to do with it, she's like, yeah, nothing. You didn't do anything. Are you serious? You knew this was going on. And she's standing there like talking with them. And then all of a sudden, this dude falls out of the saddle screaming. Behind them, knives already dripping, Severo howls like a maniac. A half dozen other howls join his as Antonia and half her Phobos garrison ride down from the North Hills on the stolen mud-black steeds. They howl like mentals in the mist. So they come down and take their place back. I'm not going to get into the whole fight, but suffice to say, this fucking dude... what's his name? Paxau Telemanus. Oh my god. This fucking dude. He keeps yelling his name. And I can't help but be like, I mean, it's a pretty dope name. So maybe it makes sense that you would yell it. Like, that's how sometimes people just have a right to the pride they carry in a title or in their house words because they're cool. And I can't help but feel like this is fair. My vision flickers black and fades, but the rage in me does not. I roar out one last bit of wrath before I faint. It's cheap. Pax is honorable. I still mash his grapes flat with my knee. I make sure to get both as many times as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4. He gawps and collapses. I faint atop him in the mud to the sound of proctors cheering. So, when he wakes up after the battle, he gets like an update on everything that's going on. Let's see, here it is. The crafty girl escaped into the castle and manages to hold it with 6 fighters. All the prisoners of Mars she captured won't be hers until she touches them with the tip of her standard. Fat chance. Roke and Antonia come with me to negotiate with Mustang at the gate. So this is an interesting conversation. Because again, the whole like attitude that Mustang has is there is a line that you don't cross. And none of our teachers are going to be okay with it because that is not the point of this. And Darrow is like, no, you're the one who doesn't understand the point of this. She says, they want leaders. You think they want monsters to lead the society? Who would want a monster for an apprentice? They want visionaries, leaders, not reapers. There are limits. I snap. There are no goddamned limits. And she keeps being like, here are what our like terms are going to be. And Darrow is like, you can say whatever you want. There is no term that you get to dictate. What you want doesn't fucking matter. And I love this. She understands how this will play out. In the end, giving us back our horrible castle won't cost her anything. Trying to keep it would. She might even end up like one of the girls in the high tower. She never thought of that before. I can tell she wants to leave. It's her sense of justice that is killing her. Somehow she thinks we should pay, that the proctor should come down and interfere. Most of the kids think that about this game. Hell, Cassius said it 100 times as we scouted together. But the game isn't like that, because life isn't like that. Gods don't come down in life to mete out justice. The powerful do it. That's what they are teaching us. Not only the pain in gaining power, but the desperation that comes from not having it. The desperation that comes when you are not a gold. If Titus raped a little girl who happened to be a red, how would you feel? She doesn't know how to answer. The law does. Nothing would happen. It isn't rape, unless she wears the sigil of an elder house like Augustus. Even then, the crime is against her master. Now look around, I say quietly. Excuse me. There are no golds here. I'm a red. You're a red. We are all reds till one of us gets enough power. Then we get rights. Then we make our own law. That's the point of all this, to make you terrified of a world where you do not rule. Security and justice aren't given, they are made by the strong. You should hope that's not true. Why? Because there is a boy here like you. My proctor calls him the Jackal. He's smarter and crueler and stronger than you, and he will win this game and make us his slaves if the rest of us go about acting like animals. So please, hurry up and evolve. And I was like, who? The Jackal? What? We're throwing a whole wrench into this game now. Who is that? I really want to know about it. So, chapter 28. First of all, they have gathered up Titus. The girls won't speak to any of the boys because of what they've seen some of them do. All eat with their heads down. There's shame there. You fucking think? And what kills me is the way this works out. Those dudes are going to essentially get away with it. And I know that's like the world. I also low-key want them all castrated. So, you know, there's that. Several scuffles have already escalated from minor words to thrown fists. I thought the victory might bring them together, but it did not. The division is worse than ever, only now I cannot define it, and I think there's only one way to mend it. The proctors aren't interfering, this is Roke, because they want to see how and if we handle justice. It's a deeper trait than this that this situation probes. How do we manage law? So what, we're supposed to whip him? Kill him? That would be law. Would it? Or would it just be vengeance? You're the poet, you figure it out. He can't stay tied up in the cellars. You know this. We will never move on from this torpor if he does, and it has to be you who decides what to do. And at this point, we get the rearing head of Cassius having claimed Titus. And Roke is like, I don't know how to tell you this. Cassius shouldn't have any say. He has no standing anymore. They literally pissed on him. That's the end of any respect they had. So no. And even Darrow is like, why do I care so much about whether Cassius gets his moment? He's a little frustrated with himself. I also am. And, you know, the way that he says, why do I care so much? I think it's obviously guilt. He killed Cassius' brother, and he is trying to alleviate that in some way, even though this doesn't do anything but, like, fix the blame for that on the wrong person. But he can couch it in this, like, justice for something else. It's actually kind of interesting now that I think about it, because I was saying that Cassius was sort of using the rapes of these women as a smokescreen for his real rage towards Titus being about his brother. And that's kind of what Darrow's also doing. Like, I'm going to make it that we're killing him because of what he did to these women. But no, you're letting him kill Titus because he thinks Titus killed his brother. So they're both kind of like utilizing the situation to make themselves feel better about a thing. And it's letting their emotions dictate their choices, which is a really bad way to go in a test like this, which is supposed to be purely about like the practicality and rule of law. You aren't meant to let those sorts of emotions run things. It's not that emotion doesn't play into it, because it does. Like, him being a leader is utilizing the emotions of the people around him as a support for himself as the figurehead of the group, but in an extremely clear-cut black and white and not personal way. And yeah, it's anyway, so this is when he goes downstairs to Titus and he speaks to him. And I was noticing a few things here. First of all, Titus calls him a golden coward. And I was already sort of like, that's weird. I mean, they'll talk about how they're golds, for sure. But the way he says it, golden is as much of a pejorative as coward. And he tries to talk to him. Why do you think they gave us nothing? And the other houses have so many resources. We're meant to fight like mad and burn out, but I beat that test. How many did you kill? Titus says, not enough. I tried to bash their heads in, kill them before the medbots came, but they were always so fast. Why did you want to kill them? I don't understand what the point is. They are your own people. He smirks at this, and I'm just like, something's really weird here. You say I'm cruel, but you had matches and iodine. Don't think I didn't know, even before I smelled you. We starved and you used what you found to become leader. So do not lecture me on morality, you backstabbing piss sucker. And then he says, you're just a boy with a sling blade. And I immediately was like, a what? He called it a sling blade? Isn't that what Darrow thinks in his head and doesn't say out loud? Like, I was already starting to be like, and Darrow doesn't seem to hear this. He remembers at the end of the convo that he said this, but in the moment, it doesn't seem to register. I thought you were like me, only worse because of that coldness in your eyes, but you're not cold. You care about these piss pricks. You made friends. So did you. Friends with them? They are monsters. Soulless bastards. Nothing but a bunch of cannibals, all of them. They did the same as I did, but I still don't understand why you did what you did. Rape. They did it first. Who? But he's not listening. Suddenly, he's telling me about how they took her and raped her in front of him. Then the slaggers came back a week later to do it some more. So he killed them. He bashed their heads in. I killed the bloody damn monsters. Now their daughters bloody well get what she got. It's like I've been punched in the face. And he hears it here. Bloody damn, bloody well. He's a red. And it's so weird because Darrow can't tell him the truth about himself because they're being watched at all times. And it's really quite lucky that Darrow clarified that they're being watched at all times, because who knows what he may have said here. But yeah, Titus says, if I were a gold, I might, what the hell's the matter with you, Titus asks. If I were a gold, I might not have noticed. I might just have been befuddled by the odd word. Darrow? I pull my way into the hall. I move in a haze. It all makes sense. The hate, the disgust, the vengeance. Titus is a red. So it was really funny to me because, like, the way that he comes in and how disdainful he is of everybody, I said, could he be another? And then I instantly dismissed even the concept of it because that was just like too many irons in the fire, too many, but why not? We don't know how many of the, folks have undergone this procedure, and we don't, at one point he's thinking like Dancer either lied or didn't know. And I was like, yeah, why would Dancer necessarily know about everybody who underwent this procedure? But what was so interesting about the moment where I dismissed it, it was both, there can't be another one, that's too many. And also the sort of, I would think that if you're doing it, you would want to keep your disdain to yourself because it's obvious that something's up if you are being a shit to everybody. I'm so sorry, guys. My cat is meowing. But what it turns out it is that's going on here really is that he is not here for a cause. So he doesn't care if there's like an obvious sense of disdain. He just wants to wreak havoc for a little bit and get his own back. And then whatever happens to him, it doesn't seem like he really cares about his own fate at all. Whereas Darrow is here for a very particular purpose, and he is laser focused on that and understands the higher objective that he is going for is moving beyond this particular situation to get himself into a place of power. So while they're both coming from a situation of being oppressed and having something awful done to a person that they care about, I don't know if the person that was raped in front of Titus was a sister or a girlfriend or a mother or what, but they aren't both coming into this for the same reason. And I think it's a really, like, the fact that Titus is just like, I know what I'll do, instead of like getting vengeance on the system, I will just perpetuate this abuse of women by doing it to their daughters. That is really, really foul. And once again, women are used this way a lot. So it's just one of those, like, it's a cycle that happens in history all over the place, that like, you did this to our women and we'll do it to your women. And it's about us as property being violated. It's not about us as people. And it's just so gross. It's so gross. And I just want, like, I want the woman that Titus is doing this for to come down and look at him and be like, you think this is helping? You think this is what I wanted? Like, does this do anything? Are you fucking serious? Because literally, what the fuck? Sorry if you're listening and you heard a weird sound. Owen opened my office door and let Arya out because she was just very loud. So, of course, Darrow realizes, well, that's it. I can't do anything with this guy. He's lost it. And he's just going to keep on doing this horrifying shit. I've got to execute him. There's no other choice. And instead of executing him, he lets Cassius do it. And it's really, really a bad choice. It's just, he shouldn't have done it this way. And he knows as he's doing it, he shouldn't do it this way. But he cannot help it. He feels more loyalty to his friend because of that bond of guilt that his friend isn't even quite aware of. Cassius thinks, oh, Darrow just honors our promise and friendship so much. He's doing this. But Darrow is riddled with guilt. And that's like the real factor here, you know? So finally, Cassius keeps like stabbing Titus and keeps saying, you killed Julian. And I thought Titus would like deny it, but he just starts laughing instead, which is, I would certainly, if I were in Cassian's place, I would also, or Cassius, sorry, I would take it as a confirmation that Titus had indeed killed my brother. Like, this feeds into that perfectly. But I stand by the fact that it is just a matter of time. There is a point where Cassius is going to find out, and you are going to be so sorry, Darrow. You're going to really wish you had just fucking told him. I just feel like it's going to be so bad. I may be wrong. Maybe Cassius will totally get it and be like, how could you have told me? You know, like, I don't know. But I just don't feel like it'll be great. And eventually, Titus is dead. Tears stream down Quinn's face. Roke takes her and Leah away. My army is silent. Thistle spits on the cobbles and puts her arm over Pebble's shoulders. Clown looks even more dejected than usual. Even the proctors make no comment. It is Cassius' rage that fills the courtyard, a cruel lament for a kind brother. He said he did it for justice, for the honor of his family and his house, but this is revenge. And how hollow it seems. This was meant for me. Not for my poor brother Titus, if that was ever really his name. He deserved better than this. And Roke is just like, you fucked up, dude. You shouldn't have done it this way. You know that. At least Cassius is feared again, but that's the only thing you got right. I hope his pain fades in death. I did not love him till he was dead, and he should be dead. But he was still my brother. So I pray he finds peace in the Vale, and that I'll see him again one day and will embrace his brothers, as he forgives me for what I did to him, because I did it for a dream, for our people. Since I cannot sleep, I take the guard shift from Cassandra. And this is when Fitchner comes and speaks with him. And they have a conversation about the point of all of this. And he mentions how Titus would have been very valuable in the military. But no, here, that kind of behavior isn't going to fly, and you guys have to learn how to deal with it on your own. Life is the most effective school ever created. Once upon a time, they made children bow their heads and read books. It would take ages to get anything across. But we have widgets and data pads. We have golds have the lower colors to do research. We don't need to study chemistry or physics. We need to study humanity. How things fall apart. How armies function. How packs form. You could learn this nowhere else but here. No, I understand the purpose. I learn more when I make mistakes, so long as they don't kill me. Good. You make plenty of them. You're an impulsive little turd. But this is the place to frag up, to learn. This is life, but with medbots, second chances, artificial scenarios. You might have guessed that the first test, the passage, was the measurement of necessity versus emotion. The second was tribal strife. Then there was a bit of justice. Now there will be more tests, more second chances, more lessons learned. How many of us can die? I ask suddenly. Don't worry about that. How many? There is a limit set each year by the Board of Quality Control, but we're well within the bounds, despite what happened with the Jackal. Is that what happened the other night when the Medbots blitzed south? Did I say his name? Oops. I mean to say that the Medbots are very effective. They heal nearly all wounds. But will they be so effective when Cassius finds out who really killed his brother? I hate that he's throwing this in his face. I don't think Fitcher's going to tell him. I don't think they don't play it that way. Until they do. You know? I just could see just being like, oh, why don't we throw a wrench in the works? Honestly, I kind of enjoy the way this is going because what it reminds me of, I'm covering Hunger Games with Rashawn, and we only have one episode left that we're covering on Friday for the book, the first book. And a thing that happens in the first book is that while Katniss is in the arena, she judges what Haymitch wants from her based on the timing of when she gets gifts from sponsors. And so she is able to sort of think like him and communicate in this kind of way. And that's sort of what's going on here with the proctors, where they're watching, and so if they're not stepping in, you understand that a certain thing is allowed or what isn't. And this is very much reminding me of the way the gods function in a lot of myths, is like they may not like something, but they don't necessarily step in unless they're like a person is affected who's a favorite of theirs, or they're personally insulted or whatever. But they don't really care about justice. That's not exactly it, So then they have like a kind of back and forth about what it is, because Fitchner says he thinks Darrow is an ancient soul. I think you're like that beast out there, part of a pack, but deeply sad, deeply alone. And I can't puzzle out why. And Darrow says you're the same, lonely. You're japes and snide comments, but it's just a mask. Is it because you don't look like the others, or are you poor? Somehow you're an outsider. And he like tries to laugh it off. And it's like, I don't need to get like, you know, because the thing that Darrow says, you're ugly and you eat like a pig, but you chew metabolizers when you could just go to a carver and fix yourself to look like the others. They could take care of that paunch in a second. And he's like, I can outwit a silver, outfight an obsidian, outmath a green. Why should I make myself look any different? I am important. I am a king of man. I don't change to suit others. And Darrow's like, yeah, then why are you chewing metabolizers? What's up? And I am so curious about that also. What's the deal? It feels like he's punishing himself somehow for something. I don't know. He isn't a red, is he? Now I'm going to be fucking suspicious of everybody who is at all different. I'm just going to be like, oh, they were red. How many men can do the things you say you can do? Few, he says, very quietly, face all anger. Very few. What is the bounty you desire for capturing the Minervan standard? I understand the conversation is nearing its end. Isn't that Severo's deal? He's passed it over to you. I ask for horses and weapons and matches. He agrees curtly, then turns to leave before I can ask him one last question. I grab his arm as he starts to ascend. Something happens. My nerves fry. He's wearing pulse armor. The jackal, you mentioned him. Who is he? He is the arch-governor's son, Darrow, and he makes Titus look like a blubbering child. I don't like it. I don't care for it. Does he belong to any of the houses? They're talking about him like he's a whole separate entity. Is he just dropped into the, are there people who aren't assigned to any of the houses or just sort of free agents? Is that a thing? So the chapter ends. Large horses graze in the fields the next morning. Wolves try to take down a small mare. A pale stallion trots up and kicks one of the wolves to death. I claim him. The others call him Quietus. It means the final stroke. I do not realize until days later that when they named my horse Quietus, they were mocking me for my part in Titus's death. And that is pretty shitty. You should have named your own damn horse is what should have happened. I guess. If you think they're naming it as like a tribute, I suppose you accept it because you're like, oh, thanks, guys. And then you don't realize until later. That sucks. What a shame. That's truly sad. All right, guys. Well, I actually got through this section under time, which is remarkable. I'm trying to think if there's anything, because I went over every detail that I really wanted to talk about. And I'm just trying to think if there's any detail in the midst of this that I wanted to go over but haven't mentioned. I don't think so. I'm really curious how long this goes on for, because the way that Fitchner said, now there will be more tests, but he also mentioned beware of the jackal. It sounds like we're going to be staying in this scenario with our respective houses and sort of defending our territory and attempting to take the standards of other houses. We're just going to do that for the remainder of the year. This feels like where we're going to sit for a minute. And maybe I'm wrong about it. I don't have also a great grasp of how much time has passed so far. I feel like it's been about 2 or 3 weeks. And it may have been longer. I feel like that's about as long as they could have survived, though, just eating like raw meat without fire or anything, right? I don't know. But if this is all, like, if this is how it goes on, I would presume then that it just doesn't end until one crew has managed to take down all the others. Like, there has to be a single house in charge for this to wrap. So what if, semester, so to speak, ends and you haven't reached that point? I don't even know. Maybe there isn't a time limit. Maybe it's simply a limit regarding the action and how that shakes out. I don't know, you guys. I genuinely am not sure, because I don't know. I'm imagining that this academy that they have gone to, I'm imagining that all of this is set up in the same way that ordinary schooling would be. And there's no reason to think that. Considering it like they have summers off and winter break, and there's a, first and second semester, and it's 4 years. There's no reason to think that at all. It's very unlikely, actually, that that's how it's set up. So for all I know, this could be for the next 3 years. I don't know. And as far as like how Darrow is going to fix the position that he's in now, he is going to have to really, because he thinks that he has made the divide between everyone worse. Since he hasn't meted out justice, nobody feels like things are resolved. And there are still a bunch of dudes walking around who participated in the rape of their other classmates that haven't been dealt with. It was supposed to be, you deal with Titus, symbolically you're dealing with them all. But you didn't deal with Titus. So you haven't dealt with anybody. So you have to find a way to resolve that. And if you don't, it just festers. What do you do? How do you make, you know what I mean? Like, I do not know how he fixes that. Punishing those guys is the only thing I can think of. And what would make that right? Like, whipping them? Castration? I don't know if that, because that would be like an attempt at justice, would the proctors allow that? They allowed mutilations, cutting off ears and things. Castration is admittedly of a different level, but they allowed rapes, so I don't see why not. And castrating your own housemates, is that gonna win you any admiration and devotion as a leader? I don't know that that's gonna help. He really fumbled. He really did. It's such a shame, because it could have been kind of tidier than it should have been. But, I don't know. Anyway, all right, I'm going to wrap this up. But thank you again, Ashley, for commissioning this. I'm really enjoying this book. Thank you all again for listening. I hope you're enjoying the coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.